Hello, classmates. My name is Tanisha Thompson, and this week we're going to discuss the information richness theory. The article I selected is The Message or the Channel, an experimental design on the consumer's perception of a local food message and the media channels used to deliver the information. The authors for this selection are Jessica Holt, Joy Rumble, Ricky Telg, and Alexa Lamb, and the information was retrieved from the Journal of Applied Communications. The information richness theory was developed by Richard Daft and Robert Lengel in 1986. They define information richness as the ability of information to change understanding within a time interval. This theory is a communication theory designed to reduce uncertainty and equivocality within organizations. Galbraith defined uncertainty as the difference between the amount of information to perform the task and the amount of information already possessed by the organization. So, large organizations that face high uncertainty have to ask a lot of questions with the need to learn more information to get the answers. So, new data can be acquired so that new tasks are performed under a reduced level of uncertainty. So with uncertainty, it's okay because it's backed up by data that can be retrieved to answer the questions. Equivocality is ambiguity, the existence of multiple and conflicting interpretations about an organizational situation. So high equivocality means confusion and lack of understanding, and little data could be obtained to answer these questions. For this one, managers tend to interpret the information and they may disagree with other leadership over the interpretation, which then trickles the confusion down to the staff. For this theory, this section is talking about the media classifications, and it's listed in the order from richest to leanest. And face-to-face is considered the richest medium because it provides immediate feedback so the interpretation can be checked. It also provides multiple cues through body language and tone of voice, and the message content is expressed in a natural language. The more direct the contact is during the communication, the higher the richness is. So you see here, face-to-face and telephone are considered the highest richness, and we start to get a little more lean as we go to the bottom of the list. So down here, it'll be like emails, posters, spreadsheets, billboards. It becomes more impersonal and more difficult to interpret. For something to be classified as high richness, it needs to include these four things: capacity for immediate feedback, number of cues and channels utilized, personalization, and language variety. So capacity for immediate feedback is very helpful face-to-face and telephone, via telephone, because if there's something that you don't understand, you can ask that question on the spot and receive clarification for your questions. The numbers of cues and channels utilized, that could be body language, direct eye contact, and the different channels could include media, telephone, billboards, personalization, being able to kind of target it to a focus, and language variety. Do you have the ability to translate scientific language to plain language so everyone can understand? So as I noted earlier, the top of the queue mentioned that high richness has cues and the ability to receive feedback. Lean richness is the opposite. It processes fewer cues. So when reading an email, a text message, or a memo from your supervisor, it's difficult um, to gather the tone from the message. It also restricts feedback. A lot of times, those tend to be one-way communications, giving direction, and communications that require a long time to enable understanding or that cannot overcome different perspectives are lower in richness. Low rich media are effective for processing well understood messages. So if it's clear and everyone's on the same page, then lean richness might be effective for the job that you need it to do. Um, Low richness is impersonal and tends to rely on rules, forms, procedures, and databases. The purpose of the study is to answer the question, which media channel is best for a message to encourage Florida residents to purchase locally grown foods? In this study, they're specifically speaking about blueberries, fresh blueberries. They used an experimental design to assess consumers' attitudes toward specific media channels using the media richness theory. The methods for this experiment included three forms of media that they identified as treatment, so print, video, and web media. It was a post-test only experimental design. Participants were randomly assigned to one treatment, and their attitude toward the treatment was assessed, and their perception of the message. Convenience samples were taken in Florida. McMillan and Shoemaker, 2010, stated convenience samples are widely used in both qualitative and quantitative studies because it may be the best the researcher can accomplish due to practical constraints, efficiency, and accessibility. So they hired an independent marketing firm to recruit participants and to synthesize the data. So this experiment was considered a true random experiment. The independent marketing firm used the 2010 census data to get the information about the population size, and they used the National Statistical Service sampling size calculator to determine an appropriate sample size. And using these, they came up with their sample size. I believe it was 1,155. The confidence level that this information was correct was 95%. This was a grant-funded study, and it was funded by the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. The participants had 5 days to respond, and the data was analyzed using SPSS 22.0, and they used the Cronbach's Alpha scale with 6 items to measure. So out of the total of 1,794 respondents, 1,155 completed the survey, and some people were excluded from completing the survey for reasons like some chose not to participate. Some participants were not over the age of 18. Some did not live in the state of Florida, or they were disqualified because they hadn't purchased blueberries in the last 3 years. Some of the demographic information included gender, ethnicity, age, and the residential location in Florida. So the sample size was 1,155, and they offered the treatments to 3 groups. That was about 385 in each group. Some additional demographics, there were 592 females, 530 males. The age range was from 18 to 80 years old. And the race ethnicity breakdown: white, black, Asian, American Indian, or Pacific Islander, and other. And 53 identified themselves as Hispanic or Latino. So this slide gives you a snapshot of the residency. So it was split between urban, the greatest population was both the urban area and the suburbs, 471 each. Then we had the downtown area. The rural area was 107, but this was not farmland, and 6 were from lived on the farm. The object of this research was to determine the effect of the interaction between the media channel and past media use on attitude toward the channel. The analysis showed respondents held a favorable attitude toward all media channels, and it was noted that this study could be applied theoretically and practically to enhance and grow the body of knowledge in both research and applied applications or communications. Individuals' past media usage was not a significant indicator of their attitude toward the media, and the findings imply that there may be more variables that account for an individual's experience on a specific media. And no matter the media, the perception of the message did directly impact their attitudes toward the channel. So the conclusions, they stated that the professional should not limit the types of media they use to reach their consumers based on past experiences uh, or past behavior to media channels. It also proved that none of the media channels had more influence on attitude than another, and it was recommended that practitioners conduct message tests before launching a new campaign, which I did forget to note that they did do this. They, for a pre-test, they tested the study with college students at a large southeastern university, but the participants' results were not included in the main study findings. So for translation to health education and behavior practice, um, this theory could be used for public health media campaigns, health education presentation topics. It can also be used for group meetings or planning meetings within your organization, as well as community health advocacy or coalition meetings. Some limitations to this uh, were the respondents of this study completed the survey via the internet, which excluded a lot of population who did not have access to the internet. And this study did not take into account portable media devices, and they didn't use social media platforms. Oh, I just noticed that spelling is incorrect. Social media platforms. And there was no follow-up about what information the consumers um, researched after reading the message. And I think another limitation was this this theory is difficult. It's kind of difficult to find some journal articles related to health. And Like I read this thing and I was just like, this makes no sense. What was the message? I don't even recall reading a message, but I'll have the link so that I'll make sure that I attach it um, to the upload so that, you know, if you wanted to review it for yourself, you could. So the two talking points I have are: one, virtual communication access has increased significantly over the past 20 years. In what ways would you incorporate the media richness theory into your current health practice? And the second one is, in what other ways could the media richness theory be translated to health education and behavior practice? All right, thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to reading your responses.